Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the testimony we've had here as well today. I know some believe that it's okay to accept slower economic growth and a lower workforce participation rate and accept this as sort of the new normal, and it's okay for wages to be flat for such a long period of time, or it's okay for record numbers of people that are working part-time that would like to work full-time, and it's okay for millions, unfortunately, to be in this chronically unemployed category. But I want to ask this question because, the topic of the hearing here is just focusing on the participation rate and what the work opportunities are and what the incentives are and how do we improve the situation. And it seems we're looking at two sides of the labor coin here. On the employer side, you've got the fact that many businesses are unable to fill the positions that they have available because they can't find eligible candidates, right, to fill the jobs and the requirements. Then you've got the employee side of the equation, where you've got involuntary part-time workers, 6.5 million, as you mentioned, Dr. Mather, that can't seem to find the additional hours that they want to work, either because they can't find the job with more hours, or possibly because there's policies that have left their employer in a position with the undesirable option of cutting hours to avoid regulatory penalties. So, Dr. Mather, if I can ask you this, in your estimation, what can be done on the employer side to help find qualified applicants, right, to help that side? And what kinds of programs, perhaps apprenticeships, can employers embrace to hire workers that might also then reduce the concern that workers may have to move on to other employers, right, and transfer to a different employer after they've invested so much time in getting the training, getting the expertise, and then they're actually going to be retained by that employer?
So I have talked a lot about at the beginning, for youth who are graduating, I think we do need paid apprenticeship programs. What we're seeing is that a lot of them are reaching the labor market with high levels of student debt, but unable to find jobs, and therefore being sort of permanently scarred or scarred for long periods of time because they don't have the incomes to pay off the debt and they're not getting the right jobs. So I think we are seeing experiments around the country where I was reading yesterday about an apprenticeship school where, if you're in high school or if you decide not to go to college, you can, go into these schools and basically get training. Or even in school, go and work at an employer and be trained for exactly the job that you might be required to do after you graduate. So I think those kinds of programs are extremely important currently, given that youth unemployment is double the official unemployment rate. Those kind of programs would really help our youth to get the jobs that they need. Mm-hmm. On the other side of the pool of unemployed who are not finding jobs and the employers who are not willing to hire them because they're afraid of what their skills are or how much experience they've lost. I think experiments like we just mentioned, the Wisconsin Fast Forward Initiative, where employers are actually being provided tax credits to hire exactly out of this pool and provide these workers the training that is needed on the job so that they can perform those jobs more efficiently, be more productive, get the skills that they need. I think those programs around the country would be successful at solving our problem of unemployment, getting the employers the skills that they're looking for in these employees, in these professions.
You mentioned this apprenticeship school you saw recently. Was that in a certain state, or is that something we could look at?
I think it was in Virginia.
Okay.
I just read the news yesterday. I think they're in Westport, Virginia.
Okay.
Oh.
And Dr. Winship, maybe ask you, do you have any opinion in terms of what can maybe be done with removing regulatory barriers that might better enable workers to contract more freely with their employers on the type of hours, pay, and benefits that they'd like to receive?
Sure. I think the best proposal that I've heard for regulatory reform would set up a commission that would essentially enumerate the worst regulations out there, and you could certainly enumerate the worst ones for job growth or for wage growth, and then the commission would present the whole menu, and there'd be an up or down vote on whether to rescind them or not. I do think occupational licensing is another really important issue that Dr. Mathur mentioned. And this goes back to the dynamism question. There are a lot of people who are protected from competition, which props up their wages. So if I'm a a florist in a state that has undue regulations on who can become a florist, that's great for me, but it's not very good for all of the people who might be unemployed, might be long-term unemployed, who would do a whole lot better if they could become florists. So I think occupational licensing is really important. Figuring out what the federal hook is there, I think is a tough question. But
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.